Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. I'm your host, Julie Fairhurst, and today I'm joined by Christine Dillard. She is the author of The Truth She Showed Me. It's a memoir about surviving coercive control, gaslighting, abuse inside a 17-year marriage, and what it really takes to come back to yourself on the other side. Christine is also a director at a Fortune 500 company, a single mom of two, and a woman who has done the deep inner work required to rebuild her life from the inside out. This is going to be a powerful conversation. It's going to be about truth, survival, courage, and the moment when a woman stops performing okay and starts finding herself again. So, Christine, thank you so much for being willing to be on the podcast with me.
Thank you, Julie. It's a pleasure.
Christine, let me ask you a little bit about what led you to write The Truth She Showed Me.
As I was leaving my marriage, one of the things that I found myself doing on a regular basis was questioning my own reality and kind of working through the motions of, was it really that bad? Were there good moments? You know, I was just working through a lot of that. Just wasn't that bad. And I realized that as I was working through that, that if I was going through that at some point, my children were probably going to go through that. And what I wanted was an opportunity to really kind of journal and just start documenting the things and the experiences that I had in the marriage. It didn't start as a book. It started as a little bit of a journal and then kind of morphed into a book over time.
I love that you journaled it and then you put it into the book. So, what made you put it into the book?
After I started, so up to the point where I was, a few months out of the marriage, I really hadn't talked to anybody about the things that had happened yet. At that point, people knew, like those closest to me kind of knew that there were some things that maybe were off, but I hadn't really shared any details. And the more I wrote, the easier it became to talk about it because I had kind of then worked through the emotions of living through it again, and kind of validating the experience that I had. And then as I talked about it more, I started finding in all of these other women and all of these other men, everybody has a story and everyone carried the same shame, the same emotions, just the same, like, I feel alone, lack of validation. Everybody I talked to had those same feelings and emotions. And it started kind of this a fire, I guess, in me to share my story so that other people could feel validated through that. And that's kind of how it started to turn into a book.
I love that. It's if you can't write it for yourself, write it for the one who needs to read it
Yes. Yeah,
because he or she is out there for sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, for someone listening who may not fully understand the term, what does coercive control actually look like in real life?
So coercive control at the highest level is the experience that we have of abuse that is not physical. It's often something that goes unseen for a long period of time. It comes in the form of the way people talk to us, the way our spouses talk to us, the way that they control finances, the way that they control our behavior through their behavior. So in my situation, a lot of times there were very angry outbursts because things didn't go perfectly or because the kids were acting out tonight or they were tired and there was a tantrum. There would be an adult outburst as well. And for me, that started to train me to make sure that I had the kids in order and I had everything mitigated before he got home so that we didn't have to deal with that once he got home. So I tried to constantly stay in front of those things. It's ruined holidays. A lot of times there's patterns with coercive control. It's a lot of times it's not like one big thing. It's a lot of small things that happen over and over and over and over again. And that's why it's so easy to dismiss and not necessarily justify, but also like we don't justify it. We dismiss it and we focus on, I think, the positive things that are in our lives. And I don't even know how to explain it really. Like you work through that experience and you're like, okay, well, today was a good day. Yeah, yesterday was a bad day, and he got angry, and I had to deal with that. But now that today's a good day, I don't necessarily want to create a bad day by dealing with and talking about yesterday. So you get into this habit of constantly either overcompensating or telling a different story to yourself about what's really going on.
It sounds, listening to you explain it, it sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is. It is so exhausting. You're always on and you're always trying to proactively prevent problems, some that
Yeah.
never show up because you prevented them, other ones that show up 10 times because you tried to prevent one.
Yeah.
It is. It's just you're always on.
Wow. So gaslighting, it can be so subtle at first. When did you begin to realize that your reality was being questioned or twisted?
There were instances very early in our relationship that I noticed it, but we were new and like nobody goes into a relationship hoping it ends, and then you don't get into a marriage hoping you fail at that or that it fails. Um, and so I told myself anyway. I gaslit myself. I told myself it wasn't that bad. I told myself that every marriage had problems. I told myself that everybody had a temper of some sort, right? Like there are things that I told myself and lied to myself about. And you get to this point very early on in my marriage where like, he didn't have to gaslight me anymore. The most common instances of it were when I tried to do something without him, whether it was a grocery store run or it was maybe a girls' night or things like that. Early in our marriage, I would try to do those things alone to get time alone. And there would be a crisis at home the minute I left. There would be 20 text messages. There would be phone calls, and not for anything major. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was like really needing me in those moments, but it was an interruption to the peace that I was trying to get by spending a few minutes away.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I didn't do things alone anymore. I went to a girls' night happy hour. He came with. I went to the grocery store. He came with. I brought the kids with. Like we all went. And so now all of those little things where you might have had a moment to recover or recharge, they're gone.
Mhm. Yeah. When when was there a moment when something inside of you said, this isn't normal and I need to start paying attention?
Sadly, it took a really long time. It was 14 years in. Um, and it came down to a scenario actually right here in this office where he had come home from work yet again in this just chaotic state of I'm going to quit or I'm on the edge of getting fired because things were going poorly at work and there was all this financial stress and just the emotional stress of me trying to figure all the things out and make sure the bills were paid and make sure that the kids had health insurance and the mortgage was paid, all of these different things. And I kind of lost it that day. Like I hadn't cried in years. And I cried that afternoon. I was just had a meltdown because the stress was overwhelming. And he said to me, he said that he had no idea I was under that amount of stress. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, like how do you not know? Like we live here together. We all know what the bills are. Like we can't survive with only one of our incomes. And he had told me that night or that afternoon that he would do better. He would stick with the job. He would try to take some of that stress off of me. And I remember looking at him and knowing that in that moment there was no way that was going to happen. Like it might
Mhm.
happen temporarily, but it was going to
Yes.
fall back to me in the end anyway. And at that point, it was just one of those moments where I was like, half the income is easier to do it myself. Um, and I wasn't committed to that because I wanted to keep my kids in their school district. I wanted to maintain their life and keep it as stable as possible. So from that 13, 14-year mark forward, what I did was I started planning when he left my office that day. I figured out what I needed to offset his income, and I doubled down at work for nearly 3 years to replace his income to make sure I could carry the health insurance um, and put all these steps in motion so that when we did get to the point where I'm filed for divorce, um, that I knew that there was that kind of, for me personally, there was that security in leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I went through a divorce years and years ago, and it was the same kind of thing. Like it clicks in your head, and you go, okay, so how, when, what am I going to do? And you
Yeah.
start planning it. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What
I
do
think
you
we
wish?
underestimate the plan sometimes, right? Like it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, I'm done, I'm leaving."
No. Well,
It's
I
never
mean,
that.
no, because you're tied. You've got financial obligations together. You've got children together. You've got mortgages. You've got friends. You've got families. It's, I know there's people that do that, but I mean, for me, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's if you can, great, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's journey is different, but
Yes.
for me, that wasn't an option.
No, no. What do you wish more people understood about why leaving an abusive and controlling relationship is not simple, other than what we just said?
The biggest thing is I think when there's and this is not a pro to physical abuse by any means, but when there is physical abuse and there is a documented like journey of that physical abuse, right? It is a slightly easier story to tell in the court system,
Mhm.
and to for the court system to acknowledge then when it comes to custody and things like that. And when we're talking coercive control and when there aren't bruises and when you question whether or not you can actually report it and whether or not something can be done about it, because frankly our legislation is a little behind on this. um, when you question those things, like there's risk, right? Like if I would have left at that 13 14 year mark when I had decided it was time, my daughter was not old enough at that point to be recognized in the court system as having her own opinion on where she lived. And that was one of the primary drivers beyond like keeping their life stable. I needed to wait until she was of a certain age to be able to move safely. And
Yeah,
if it ever came to that, we got to a point where um, the the way it worked out was the kids would live with me and I wouldn't interfere with custody or with his time with them if he petitioned for that. And it didn't come to a situation where we had to go to court, but I didn't want to take that risk because the risk was 50-50. And when it was 50-50, I couldn't be there.
yeah, yes,
And so
yeah,
I think that's something that's something that I would love for people to understand is it's just not that simple. It's not as simple as just walking away.
no, it's
Um,
no, no, no,
yeah.
and especially with children.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you just don't. Yeah, you're right. You can't risk certain things happening.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely.
What about shame? Did shame play a role in your journey?
It did. It played a huge part in my journey for a long time.
Mm,
Um, for almost the entire time, frankly. I mean, there's a reason I
yeah,
didn't talk about it, right? One, I had shame like that I'd internalized for myself of like, how did I get here? How did I let this happen? Um, and when you work through the healing process, you realize you're not in control of other people's behavior, but that doesn't make it easier, right? Like, because I mean, 17 years is a long time. And not only did I put myself through that, but I put my children through that. And so you carry that shame, you carry that regret and that guilt. Um, then you worry about silly things like what the neighbors think. Can tell you, yeah, the neighbors don't give a shit. They did not care, did not phase
no,
them at all, as it turns out. So getting to the point where I could let that go, because up to the point actually of when I released the book, I was truly living a double life. I was this woman in my professional life that seemed to have it together, like had command of the boardroom of executive meetings and things like that, her business. And then outside of the business hours, here I am, this other woman who can't even defend herself, like, and wasn't standing up for herself or her children. And there's a ton of shame that comes with that. But releasing the book publicly was the chance I got to kind of bring both those women together and be that one woman, which was super freeing.
yeah. And when you publish your story, the shame goes away.
It does. It
Yes,
does.
yes. And sometimes people are very, because that's what I do is I help women with their stories. And a lot of times that's one of their biggest fears is, oh, what is everybody going to think? And the shame that they feel. But once it's out there, they realize that the shame is really, it's an internal thing. Yeah, yeah,
Isn't it mind blowing? Like once you start talking about your story, like how validated you feel by the community that's out there. Like it's such a
yeah,
supportive survivor
yeah,
community that it's a
yes.
little mind blowing because you live so long thinking you're the only one and you're alone in all of it, and it's so not true.
No, no, but we don't know that
Yes,
when we're in
yes,
it. You get
yes.
blinded and you're blinded by guilt and shame and the and
Isolation.
trying isolation and trying to keep the peace and it's so chaotic. There's no time to think
Yes.
clearly. Yeah, wow. So you said that the body knows things the mind can take years to catch up to. How did your body speak to you during the time that you were going through all this?
When I started the book, and you can kind of see it in the title, I called it The Lies She Told Me because I was mad. I was mad at myself because I let myself
Mm.
get here, because I didn't acknowledge it for what it was. And as I kind of worked through my journey, I realized that, well, my body, she had been telling me all along. And I didn't know the signs in the early stages. I didn't recognize them for what they were, right? Like um, like I woke up every day with a sore neck and sore shoulders and my back hurt because I didn't sleep well. I didn't sleep at all because I tossed and turned all night trying to make sure that like the kids didn't make a peep, and if they did, I got there first so that it didn't disturb him. It was in the heart racing when he raised his voice at myself or the kids or a stranger, the road rage. Um, it was it showed up in just the sweaty palms, like just in a number of different ways. And what I realized in this process is, when I didn't listen, she got louder. So those were all fairly benign symptoms. And then I got to a point where I had high blood pressure and high cortisol and insomnia. And all of these things started to compound and become a lot louder. And they were all a result of the high stress and the high anxiety of that time period. And um, it showed up in so many different ways that I just didn't recognize for what it was at the time.
It's so interesting hearing you say that because I believe that you can only stuff so much down and eventually it's going to come out somewhere and
Yes.
in illness and that type of thing and I used to have I only have one kidney which I've been fine but in my 20s and 30s I had so many kidney infections it would land me in the hospital for a whole week and finally, I just started to see the correlation as what was happening in my life. And every time I had that kidney infection, I got to check out. I checked
Oh,
right. I was in that
it was your
hospital.
body's way of giving you a little
Somebody else takes
reprieve.
care. Yeah, it was just yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And then I haven't had a kidney infection in 20 years.
Isn't that insane? I mean,
Isn't
it's
that
mind
crazy,
blowing how our
right?
body can protect us, right?
Yeah, yeah. It just I know, but when I was in it though, I'm like another, and then they send you out for all these tests but nobody bothers to say what's going on in your life.
Yes, that that right there. Yes. If we like when we go into the doctor and they say, and that I know we're doing the best we can right now, but we can do better. When they say, "Are you being abused at home? Are you scared to be at home?" Whatever the question is, right? No, nobody's answering that honestly because that person's probably sitting in the hallway, or I have to go home to them. One of the two. It's
Yeah,
not safe.
yeah,
And yeah, like if we started looking at how the body and the mind talk instead of just
yeah,
treating a symptom, I think
yeah,
we'd
yeah.
uncover a lot more, a lot faster.
Oh, for sure. I want to tell you a really quick story. So one night I'm lying in bed with my Kindle reading, and I'm starting to fall asleep, and all of a sudden, whack, it dropped out of my hand because I started to fall asleep, and it got me right here. And I thought, oh, that's not going to be good, right? So you go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and I've got quite the shiner, which develops into like a really black eye and like I'm going looking for like can I get makeup for it and because it was just like yeah it was bad anyway. I'm telling you this story because I had to go see my doctor. And my doctor was away. So I saw a different doctor that was in, and I don't even remember what I was going for. It had nothing to do with the black eye. But I sat in front of her for at least 15 minutes, and she never once said, "How did you get the black eye?"
Oh my gosh.
I'll never forget that. Now, I wasn't
Wow.
abused. A Kindle, I told my
She
ex,
doesn't know that?
no, she doesn't know that. No,
Yeah.
I was shocked that, and I just sat there
Wow.
waiting, and luckily I wasn't an abused woman. I just dropped my Kindle on my eye, falling asleep. But, but I was just, and it really woke me up because I thought, what if I was really an abused woman?
Yes.
What if I needed help?
Yes.
That's your opportunity, doctor, to say, hey, that's quite the shiner. Like, what happened?
Yes.
Not a word, not a peep. Anyway,
Wow.
I know. So sometimes we think, well, I didn't go there for help for that, but I sat there
Right.
totally expecting. I had a waitress who looked at me and then looked at my husband, and she said to him, "Did you do that?" I'm like, way to go,
Like
lady.
the
But
waitress cares more.
the
Like,
waitress cared more than the doctor. Anyway, that's my little story.
oh,
But yeah, we need to, we as a collective women, we
yes.
need to say, hey, are you okay? Is there anything
Yes.
I can do to help? Do you want to just chat? Something.
Yes. I always get the like, how do you know? And one of the telltales, and I didn't recognize this back then, but I can see it real quick now. If she is, if your best friend, your sister, your mom is with you all the time and her phone never leaves her hand, there's a reason for that. It's because she's going to miss the call or she's going to miss the text and she's going to pay for it later. And it's a habit. It's not the thing where I set it down and I pick it up in every half an hour and look at
Yeah.
it. She is looking at it constantly and she is always multitasking because she's always trying to stay on top of whatever might go wrong outside of this conversation.
Wow.
And man, when you start to look for things like that, you start to see things real quick. The
Yeah.
abrupt departure. If you're at dinner, you're at happy hour with your girlfriend, and everything's going great, you guys are having a great time. All of a sudden, she abruptly leaves, and she makes up an excuse, right? Kids got sick, whatever. There will always be an excuse, but it was quick. If that happens more than once, that might be a flag. It might be worth having the conversation. I
Yeah.
will. I don't know about you, but like I wasn't ready to. If somebody would have said, "This is what's happening to you," I wouldn't have listened, and I probably would have actually said, "I'm not going to talk to you anymore," because I wasn't ready. But I also think the thing that helped me get ready was hearing other people's stories.
Yes.
Even if I
Yes.
couldn't call it mine yet, the
Yeah.
reality is, I think the more we talk about it as a society, the more we talk about the signs and the symptoms, the more educated we all are on, oh, it is that bad. Like if you're asking yourself that, yeah, it absolutely is. Or you wouldn't be
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. How did you deal with it at work? So, how did you keep going while carrying so much privately?
That was the one place I felt like I was successful. I
Mm,
felt to some degree like I was failing as a mother for not being able to protect my kids better. I was failing at my marriage because I couldn't keep that together. I couldn't keep him happy. So work was the one place where I had that feeling of like I was in control. And that made going to work easy. It made being a good performer really easy, because it was like, okay, that's the one place where I got that validation I needed. Um, and luckily, because we came into our relationship with both of us kind of having 50-50 for like household income, luckily there was never a time where it was like he owned all the finances. Because that would have been a very different story. And it is for a lot of people. But
yes.
because we started down that path initially, like we couldn't sacrifice my career for just his income. We couldn't live like that, at least not in maintain. So
Right.
that worked to my advantage because I got to keep that sanctuary, I guess.
Yeah. 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 So, why do you think you ended up there?
Oh goodness. There was definitely, I think my perception of love was very different. I'm not even sure I could tell you that I knew what it was back then, when I started down my relationship with path with him. I didn't love myself. That's clear. I don't know that I even got to the point where I did love myself until the last couple of years as I got on the other side of this. Um, As we get older, we learn a little more about like where love starts and that we can be whole without another person. Like it's great if we can complement each other and that works, but that we don't rely on that. And we get brought up, or we did. There's a long generation or long set of generations of us that were brought up with this two-parent household, two kids, white picket fence, all the things. And like we were all striving for that, and nobody got divorced. I grew up in the
Yes.
80s and 90s. People didn't get divorced.
Yeah.
People worked through it or ignored it, depending on the family. But you see a lot of those women getting divorced now. There's there's just there's a whole movement, it feels like, where women are feeling more empowered to make changes that are better for themselves, and it's it's inspiring to watch.
Absolutely. I think that we're definitely more empowering for
Yes,
ourselves and for others.
yes,
I feel like we've become a tribe of back to our femininity, but
yeah,
supporting one another. Because I
yeah,
think you're right. I think for years that, and maybe our parents, our grandparents didn't have that opportunity
right.
because everything was so, you have 6 kids, 7 kids, you're living in a 3 bedroom house, 1 bathroom, everybody's working the farm. There's no time for,
Yeah, and they didn't have access to the resources, right? Like they didn't have
right.
TikTok and Instagram where you could learn about these types of abuse
That's
and
right.
what's right and
That's
what's
right.
not, what's
Yeah.
normal and what's not.
Yeah.
There's so much more access to information.
No, you're so right. And even now, if someone's in a situation but they're living in it in silence, you're right. They can go to the internet, they can go to YouTube, they can go to TikTok, they can find resources and books and videos that they can hopefully watch to help them get a little bit of more courage
Yeah.
to help themselves. Where years ago, yeah, that wasn't
Yeah.
there.
An
Mhm.
anonymous friendship, right? Like we don't have to wait till after 9 o'clock to call the one person whose phone number we have. We can actually have anonymous friendships online where we have similar stories and we can lean on
Yes.
each other. It's cool.
It is. It is. Yeah. So writing a memoir about something this personal, it really takes enormous courage. So what was the hardest part for you to put your truth on paper?
Uh, it's a very honest story. There is no level of perfection on either side. And I think the hardest part in working through all of it was acknowledging like my part in not just like enabling the behavior that was happening in my home, because again, we learn to accommodate, we're trained to accommodate through this form of abuse, the behavior. And so in a sense, we're enabling it. I have some responsibility in this. Um, I can't control his behavior, but I can control mine. And that was tough. The other piece was the acknowledgement of the things that I thought I protected my kids from that I didn't.
Mhm.
Because as you work through something like this, you start to, in the same way that your body protects you, your mind protects you as well.
Yeah.
And you bury a lot of things. And when you start working through the healing process, you work through trauma coaching and all the things, you start to uncover a lot of things that you ignored and you put away and you didn't even know existed for a while. And those pieces start to fall back together and you realize it was a lot bigger and worse than you thought.
Yeah. 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 But that's all you can do when you're in that
It
situation.
is. It is.
Because
Because
if you
it's
don't,
survival.
that's right. You're just going to go crazy if you don't, or something's going
Right.
to happen to you. Yeah.
Yes.
So, for someone listening who's questioning their own reality right now, what would you want them to know?
I want them to know that if they're questioning it, that we believe you. Um, and that it is that bad. Again, if you're asking yourself that question, I say this a lot. If you're asking yourself that question, there's a reason. Your mind is caught up and it is that bad. And it gets really, really easy to hear people's stories and start to compare. And
Yes.
all of these different kinds of abuse, physical or otherwise, are super sophisticated and they get more sophisticated by the day. You can't compare stories.
No.
You can't. Abuse is abuse. And if you're asking yourself, is it that bad? The answer is yes.
Mhm, mhm. So, what kind of response have you gotten from your book?
Oh, heartbreak. It's been heartbreaking.
Oh,
It's it's done what I wanted it to do. Like I set out and said, I want, if one woman reads this and thinks, oh my gosh, I have words for the things that I went through. Um, I've had several people reach out over the last couple of months and say, for 30 years I lived in this situation, and here I am reading this book. Now I'm out and I'm reading this book, and it's like you're writing my life. How did you know? And
mm,
those are, like I said, heartbreaking because there's a lot of them. But the ones that really get me are the ones where someone says, I read the book, but I just gave it to my friend because she needs it too. And that's how I hoped
oh,
this book would work. Like I hoped that it would be something that someone would read and be like, I know someone who needs to read this and pass it along.
yeah. Yeah, that's all we can hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that once we share it, that it's it's a light for somebody else for sure. Well, what
Yes.
would you say to a woman who looks strong on the outside, but is quietly breaking on the inside? And I guess that was you.
That was me. That was me. I would I would tell her she's not alone. And I would tell her there is absolutely no shame in exiting that journey. And then if you choose to sharing your story, there's absolutely no shame in that. The outpouring of love from people is a little mind blowing. But also it kind of does that whole restores your faith in humanity thing. It's a beautiful community out there. So if you've got it all together, but you're breaking inside, just know you're not alone.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Your story carries pain, but it also carries a lot of power. So, what does freedom now mean to you?
Oh, freedom for me today is the ability to be one woman and not two, to
Mm,
find peace in just a sunrise, in laying in bed for 10 extra minutes, because that was something I never got to enjoy before. I was always moving and thinking and going, and the quiet Sundays with the kids, the couch rotting, and watching TV with them. They're just the peace that comes with all of that.
mhm. Wow. Yeah. Well, I would like everyone to know that we are going to have in the show notes, we are going to have ways that you can reach out to Christine and that you can purchase her book. So we'll have a link in there for you so that makes it nice and easy for you. It sounds like a fabulous book. And if it's not necessarily for you, just like Christine just said, you probably have a friend who might need to read it or a spouse, not a spouse, I'm sorry, or a parent, um, a child. Who knows? There's a
Yes.
lot of people out there that get themselves in situations and need to have some light so that they can see their way out for sure. Well, what do you hope? What do you hope readers take away from the truth she showed me?
I'm hoping that for those that are living it, I'm hoping that they take away the fact that they're not alone, and they feel some form of validation in the process. And for those that are supporting people who might be going through it or who have gone through it and you're maybe on the other side, um, I'm hoping you find maybe peace in knowing that we're trying to drive change. Like that's the bigger mission here. Like knowledge is great, but at the end of the day, there's some change that needs to take place. We talked about legislation a little bit. We talked about, the doctor's visits and things like that, recognizing it. So I'm hoping that they take away enough knowledge to be able to help have those conversations too.
Yeah. Wow. It's it just so needed because of the isolation, and especially I find these days that we do spend more time isolated because
Yes.
everything is not everything, but so much of what we do now is on the computer. Many of us work from home, and so we're not getting. Some of us are not getting out the way we used to. So um, networking groups, whatever you need, those girls' nights out, those are can do a they're so needed. We just need
Yes.
our female energies around us for sure to help. So, yeah. Well,
Yes.
Christine, thank you so much for bringing all your truth and your book and all the wisdom that you've been willing to share from what you went through. And I know that there's people that are going to be listening to this that are going to find they're going to see a little bit of light, and hopefully that's enough to get them to start going towards it. And definitely buy her book if you are if you're going through anything like this and struggling, uh, get her book. It's going to help you. It's going to give you some guidelines. It's going to let you know you're not alone and that you too can have a better life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julie.
You're
This was
welcome,
fantastic.
Christine. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, everybody, as much as we could carry on, we can't. So, thank you so much for being here for this episode of Women Like Me, Stories in Business. And we will see you all again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.